Hi everyone, my name is Alison Shapira and welcome to our RegTech Edge No Borders event on conduct, culture and ethics. In the spirit of reconciliation, the RegTech Association acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. In acknowledging country, we honour the resilience, wisdom and innovative spirit of Indigenous communities. Innovation is woven into the fabric of Indigenous cultures, so let us tread this land with reverence, recognising that every step we take is on land that holds stories, memories and ancient knowledge. Since 2020, we've had over 20,000 people from more than 100 countries registered for our programs. We really appreciate the support we continue to see from our community. So thank you very much for being part of our event programs. Today, we have 7 RegTechs presenting for our audience. That includes over 100 registrations from 19 countries. We have 44 regulated institutions, 10 government regulators, 31 RegTechs. So I wish to thank you for making the time to join us today, wherever you're joining us from. And just a bit of housekeeping before we start. If you could please keep your cameras off and your mics off unless you are presenting, thank you. Our presenters today will have 5 minutes each to present. And so at that 4-minute, 30-second mark, they'll see my face come on the screen again as a visual reminder that they have 30 seconds left before we need to go on to the next presenter. So presenters, please, I'd like to respectfully ask that you not go over your 5 minutes so that everyone gets an equal opportunity. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Sean O'Neill, who will provide us with a quick overview on the current landscape. Sean is a consultant partner and non-financial risk leader at Tata Consultancy Services. He has worked in financial services for more than 30 years, with over 20 years leadership experience in non-financial risk management, both in established and challenger banks. He was Group Director of Operational Risk at NatWest from 2016 to 2021 and a non-financial risk director at Aldermore Bank. Alongside framework development and implementation, he has led oversight teams across the full range of non-financial risks, as well as hands-on engagement in major risk events such as the COVID-19 preparedness and response. Over to you, Sean. Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you, Alison, very much. Hello, everyone. Delighted to have the opportunity to join you today. This is my first attendance here at the RegTech Association, even if I'm over 10,000 miles away. And hopefully when you realise that I'm not a regulator, I'm not a techie, and I'm not Australian, hopefully that won't preclude me from being invited back. As Alison's kind introduction said, though, I've worked in non-financial risk leadership roles for a long time. So I've either at first hand or close hand seen many of the challenges that people face and banks face in managing this stuff. And that difficulty of managing that has the backdrop, I think, of intensive regulatory scrutiny, increased diversity and complexity of the risk. So it's an even harder job for risk and compliance officers now, and they need all the help they can get, which I think makes forums such as this so valuable. Before the presentations from individual providers, I thought I'd just do a bit of a scene set on the topic from my perspective. Obviously, given my location and background, that will inevitably have a UK slant to it, but I think that's fine. I think the themes here are broadly similar. Nathan, if you can move on to the next slide, please. So I thought I'd start with some thoughts on the landscape. So in the UK, you're probably aware, we have 2 primary regulators. We have the Prudential Regulatory Authority, that's part of the Bank of England. They lead on prudential matters, stability of the financial system, monetary policy independence of interest rates and so on. And then we have the Financial Conduct Authority that brings some similar themes in terms of stability and confidence in markets, but really I see as the one that's dedicated to consumer protection, and they regulate many more organisations as a result of that. That's key for this topic, obviously, in terms of consumer protection. And the FCA is responsible for the new consumer duty regulations that took effect in the UK the middle of last year, and introduces a new principle to the FCA's rulebook. There was previously 11 principles. There's now a 12th one, which states that firms must act to deliver good outcomes to retail customers. So that brings a real legal weight and accountability to the positioning around conduct and good outcomes to customers. It includes aspects such as board level champions as well. But despite that extent of regulation, we continue to see headlines. We've seen some new themes start to emerge around, for example, decisions on customer exits, and where there's the suspicion that these are linked to political views of customers. In the UK, that ultimately led to a CEO resignation. We've seen increased attention towards themes such as greenwashing, as well as the traditional challenges in the conduct space around commissions paid by customers, leading to potential remediations. And we know that these take a lot of time, they cost a lot of money, and they divert focus, and we continue to see some of those. I'm not sure that there's anything inherently systemic in those, but it does show the challenge, I think, all the time of getting it right in terms of the ability to fall on the wrong side of the conduct and ethical risk line, which for me always then comes back to risk culture and the challenge of whether a good culture or a bad culture exists and grows within an organization. And again, the risk and compliance community, I think, has got a really important but tough role to play there, and will often find themselves in the middle of the organization between the regulator or wider external society and perspectives and what's going on in the organization. And so they have to be really strong in terms of managing the tensions that can arise with that. Move on to the next slide, please, Nathan. So taking that context of the landscape, I thought I'd just draw together a few observations. They're not, these won't especially be rocket science. They'll be fairly obvious, but it pulls together in terms of a few themes of how I observe conduct, culture, and ethics risk, and particularly some thoughts really in terms of what risk officers should be on guard for and potential responses. First one there, everything impacts everything. I see this increasingly in terms of the interplay between risks, the trade-offs that could be made, the choices on different risks to take. This is never a binary decision in terms of accept or not accept. And so I think risk functions, compliance functions have to be really alert now for the unintended consequences of the choices that are made. It's very easy to get siloed and focused on an internal conversation and not consider the wider ramifications and perceptions. So that's where I think, in terms of response, increased use of scenarios, pre-mortems, bringing in additional perspectives to get as rounded a view as possible on positions to take. Next one, please, Nathan. Secondly, there's no let up in the regulatory expectations. That's not a bad thing, but it's difficult to stay on. It can be difficult to stay on top of. And so again, in terms of being alert, I say this cautiously, but organizations and being alert for gold plating, I always kind of refer to it in previous organizations, the gold plating that can exist in terms of the full extent of compliance and the costs that can get away there. So I think risk functions have a real important role in terms of navigating with the regulator, transparency in the relationship with a regulator and openness there, complemented by RegTech tools, as we discuss on forums such as this, that enable the management of that raft of regulation. Next one, Nathan. Thirdly, new technology changes the game. We still see a lot of caution. I say a lot of caution in terms of Gen AI adoption. And from a conduct perspective, there are so many strands to that. We talk about bias, we talk about ethics, we talk about societal perception. And again, I mean, in terms of being alert for risk and compliance functions, need to be alert for the intent of a tool. Good or bad, Gen AI is a powerful tool, but not everyone has good intent, and the value of data we see in there is significantly enhanced going forward. So we have to be alert for that, and that means that risk and compliance has to be engaged much more strategically in their organizations, and have the skills to be able to do that right at the outset, and to understand the risks that are inherent in these tools. the real analogy for me here looks back to the financial crisis of 2008, and one of the reasons that was had the impact it did is because organizations didn't understand the risks they were running. They didn't understand the complexity of the products that they were running and the risks that were within those. And there could be some parallels here in some of this if the risks that are inherent in some of the new technologies are not understood. Next one, please, Nathan. The fourth one for me, customers need protecting. I think this kind of age of greater vulnerability is a new norm for us, really. And we see the challenges of misinformation, which for me means that customers need protecting more and more. That persists and has increased attention, as we see in the UK with the Consumer Duty regulation. And I think in terms of being alert, it comes back to that old adage of, do I want to read this in the news? Do I want this to lead to, do I want something to downstream lead to heavy remediation programs, the cost, the focus being diverted that goes alongside that, and those can appear when it feels to me that organizations can go through the motions. So bringing real rigor to product reviews, challenging the principles that go alongside regulations such as Consumer Duty, and having real clear accountabilities being tight in terms of how executives in organizations fulfill their accountabilities. And then lastly, Nathan, the what happens when people aren't looking, that well-worn phrase of what happens when people aren't looking, the culture that exists within an organization. And for me, the fact that is heightened, where the risk is heightened, where the culture is deficient. And I think the real thing that organizations have to be alert for here is memories fading. It's a long time since the last crisis now, and people's memories fades. And I guess for me, the risk and compliance officers, their memories can't fade on this, and have to be able to continually educate organizations, build awareness, build embedded frameworks that enable organizations to be as alert to the compliance angles as they are. I hope that's helpful in terms of providing some insights. From my perspective, I'm very happy to continue the debate if anyone wants to reach out afterwards through the chats or through further discussion via LinkedIn. Alison, back to you.
Thanks, Sean. That was great. And I really enjoyed those five observations. So thank you for running us through them. I really appreciate it. And thank you for getting up so early. You can go and have a cup of tea, or feel welcome to stay online, but feel free to grab a cuppa as well to keep you awake. I'd like to now introduce our first RegTech of the day, and that is ASC Technologies. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm Emma Skagebjörg, Global VP of Microsoft Alliances at ASC, and we work with mitigating compliance risks through our compliance recording platform, Recording Insights, and using also AI-based analytics. So if you switch to the next one, please. So ASC is a global company. We have 15 subsidiaries around the globe, headquartered in Germany, and we've been around for over 60 years, actually. We service more than 50 countries today through our certified partners in all local markets. We're about 280 employees all in all. Next one, please. We pursue a better together strategy with Microsoft. We are a top-tier Microsoft partner. We offer a native app in the Microsoft Teams user interface for a unified user experience. And we do capture all the different channels within Teams. So voice, video, screen, and also chat. Our app is transactable in the Azure Marketplace, so customers that do have a Mac commit with Microsoft can retire a Mac by procuring through the marketplace. We do host in Microsoft Azure in any region of the world, ensuring data governance. And we also allow our customers to use their own encryption keys. So bring your own keys and also bring your own Azure storage. We use powerful analytics where we have incorporated Microsoft's AI services. So we can transcribe and translate in over 90 languages. We are also integrated to Azure OpenAI and Copilot. And we do have an integration as well to Dynamics 365 for those customers that are using Dynamics as a CRM. So you can see the history of your conversations, also see the content of those conversations in Dynamics. Next one, please. So we do have a compliance policy engine where we're using AI, and some of the use cases are validating, for example, that disclaimers have been said during conversations. We can also auto-categorize calls, so regulated calls versus non-regulated calls. We can also identify if calls contain personal data, ensuring that we cover all those privacy regulations all across the globe. And we can also detect patterns as part of the conversation. So we can see if we have PCI DSS sensitive information like credit cards or account numbers as part of the conversations. And we can also detect keywords or phrases said during conversations. So if we have customer complaints, for example, or specific topics discussed, we can also report on those as part of the solution and also detect inappropriate consulting, for example. So de-risking your business as part of these analytics. Next one, please. We also support a range of other platforms. We can import legacy recordings from other recording platforms and also from the contact center platforms, and then run analytics across all those different recordings. So as a compliance officer, you would have one single pane of glass for compliance analytics. Next one, please. So lastly, we do offer a 30-day free trial. So please feel free to reach out regarding that. And also you can download our white paper on boosting compliance with AI in Microsoft Teams. So please do reach out for a demo and for further information. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was great. Now over to Complyze. Jackson.
Hi, everyone, and thank you to the RegTech team for inviting me along today. I'm speaking about our regulatory technology platform, Complyze, which is intended to support Australian businesses to meet their immigration legal obligations in regards to their temporary visa holders in the workforce. And we'll be looking in particular today at the ways in which the platform can support the conduct, culture and ethics of a business. Next slide, please. So Complyze has been designed to support organisations to meet their end-to-end international workforce needs. What does that mean? In essence, there are a large number of people in Australia, around 2 million, on temporary visas, and a large number of these are actually in the workforce. Around 1 in 10 people in Australia in the workforce is actually on a temporary visa. And depending on the visa, the employer has a range of different obligations, whether it's to make sure that the person has a valid visa, that they're working in a way which is consistent with their visa conditions, or if they're sponsored, to make notifications to the Department of Home Affairs, who are responsible for immigration in Australia. And one of the big changes that is coming into place at this point in time is the government has passed legislation which will mean that from the 1st of July of this year, if you breach your obligations in regards to immigration as an employer, or you are subject to certain sanctions under the Australian Fair Work Act related to underpayments, you can be banned from employing any further temporary visa holders. Now, just to give an example, we are working with a national fast food brand who have around 17,000 employees in 100 different sites across Australia. And in some of those sites, up to 30% of the workforce are on temporary visas. Now, for them to lose access to those temporary visas would be very devastating. So this is one of the reasons that immigration compliance is becoming more and more important. And our platform provides staff and stakeholders with training and educational resources so that they understand what their obligations are in regards to immigration law. So, for example, if we move to the next slide, we have two key components. One is the workforce management system, which essentially integrates into your HR platform, or it's available as a standalone. The workforce management platform provides the tools to track all of the relevant visa conditions and requirements. It sets up notifications to alert the organisation in regards to things like changes of position, which may impact the organisation's obligations, changes in income, changes in location of employment. And it's designed essentially to set rules which govern how and when certain employees can work. And often these obligations are an additional layer of responsibilities that organisations have above and beyond what you must do for an Australian citizen. And so the platform's really been designed around these rules to allow the organisation to have visibility and manage those obligations. So that's the workforce management side of the platform, which is really the technical hub. It integrates with the HR systems and payroll systems to ensure that you have full visibility across the organisation. Many organisations in Australia continue to manage their immigration obligations on spreadsheets. And for example, that organisation I was talking about before with 17,000 employees and 2,000, in excess of 2,000 people on temporary visas, that's simply not possible to do. The second component is really this knowledge and training, and this is where ethics and culture come into things. Many people in Australia really don't understand the immigration system in the workplace. They don't understand how people are expected to treat temporary visa holders, or perhaps even understand that temporary visa holders cannot always do the things that an Australian citizen employee may be able to do. So these courses are designed for individuals in the business based on their circumstances, whether they be visa holders, whether they be line managers who are responsible for supervising temporary visa holders, or for stakeholders in HR, people and culture, or the executive. We've also got an immigration law library, which is essentially like a Wikipedia of immigration information for organisations that manage their own immigration legal requirements internally. Thank you very much. So in terms of the key features, with regards to conduct, we're educating employees about what their obligations are. We're educating stakeholders about what you can and cannot do in the immigration system and providing those automated tools. Next slide, please. So key benefits are minimising the risk of financial harm. Reputational damage is a major issue in this space, and protecting organisations' access to international workforce. We're also providing tools to protect company directors, because there is personal liability for directors, including jail time for misconduct in this space. Final slide. So you can find out more information on our website at www.complies.com.au or contact us at hello@complies.com.au. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Alison.
Thanks, Jackson. That was great. Over to Leap Expert and Chillip. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Alison, and thank you, the RegTech Association. Next slide, please. Okay, so we look at the conduct and risk and the culture around instant messaging, things that we probably use every day. These are just some of the headlines over the last few weeks. If you start at the top left, the fines from the US regulators, SEC and CFTC, are now almost $3 billion US. Yep, $3 billion US. And the last fine was only a couple of weeks ago, again, for investment advisors not recording their communication with their clients. Now, it's even gone over to the governments. So there's been a bipartisan bill just presented, which really looks at, again, electronic communication, including disappearing messaging apps. As you know, WhatsApp, WeChat, Signal, Telegram, they have all these features. So that was only presented last month. And we look at that keenly. Over in Australia, in the top right, we've seen scams continue. So the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission publishes reported scams, and still the most popular way of scams start with text messaging and instant messaging. So that 45,000 is only the year to date, so it'll be hundreds of thousands before the end of the year. When you look at government, the British government has had multiple scandals around WhatsApp. The latest one, I'm sure if you're checking the news, you'll see issues where WhatsApp is being shared and abused and potentially subject to espionage and other national governments using WhatsApp to target governments. And actually, the UK energy regulator was the first regulator in UK to issue a fine last year for, again, not capturing any of this communication between business. Next slide, please. For Leap Expert, our solution is the communication platform, where we centralize and manage all messaging apps, as well as the recent addition of voice, mobile, as well as other voice channels. So at the heart of it, you have a solution that interacts and integrates with all the different messaging apps. So it's managed at an enterprise level. It's not up to the individual user to choose whether to save or even communicate on these messaging apps. And critically, on the top left, we integrate with a lot of platforms, primarily Microsoft Teams. So from Microsoft Teams, you can WhatsApp and WeChat and send iMessages to your customers. You don't have to use your own WhatsApp. You can actually use an enterprise solution. And of course, we partner with many different archiving and surveillance systems to ensure all that communication is stored and managed by the firm. Next slide, please. So who are we? We were founded in 2017. We're just completed our Series A last year and moved our headquarters to New York. But we have a significant presence in Asia, across Singapore and Hong Kong, Philippines and Vietnam, and we continue to grow and expand. Most of our customers, the early adopters, have been top-tier global banks, but we have many different verticals as customers. So we have global law firms who use our solution. We have mining companies in Australia using our solution. We're working with the European government to manage ministers' use of instant messaging and many other different use cases. But critically, it's our partnerships which make us stand out. So you already heard from one of our partners, ASC, who provide an outstanding recording and analytics platform for all types of communication, and we integrate with their platform. But we work with many financial technologies as well as software providers. And we've won numerous awards. Hot off the press, we've been shortlisted as a finalist for the RegTech Association's RegTech of the Year for the APAC region. So very proud of that. We also just won this week as well the Asian Private Bankers Technology Awards for Front Office Solution of the Year. So multiple awards. We've been Microsoft Partner of the Year for the last 2 years. We've been on Gartner's Cool Vendor. So numerous awards and accolades. Last slide, please. If you're interested to find out more how we can help your organization, feel free to reach out to me by email. You can follow us, and of course, from LinkedIn, as well as our website there. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Chillip. It was great. And now I'd like to welcome My Compliance Management. Over to you, Carol. Thank you. Have we got My Compliance Management on the line still? I know that they were on before.
Hi,
Just
Alison.
checking.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
no. Hi,
All
everybody.
good.
Sorry, went
Perfect.
in there. I thought you'd turned off my microphone, so apologies for that. But thanks for your time today, everybody, and thank you, Alison, for that. My name's Carol Moore. I'm part of the team at My Compliance Management, and we're based in the UK. And a different solution to the software that you're looking at today, in all honesty. We're a SaaS solution for national and international enterprises throughout a multitude of industries, including RegTech sectors. But our software services were initially created to assist health and safety teams, but that's grown. It now includes environmental quality estates and facilities, and latterly a broader range of departments, especially with the introduction of our new platform, My Compliance Vision. What we are is a building brick solution for compliance, risk and management within organisations, so not just RegTech industries. So that could be your health and safety teams, it could be your quality or environmental, as I said. And as I say, now we have the ability for you to actually build a module and the workflow processes that you want. So we're used by large corporates for scenario building to see where the risks are for that particular organisation, be it from a variety of different types of risks, for want of a better word. So I suppose we're more of an operational compliance platform rather than a solution focused purely on the financial compliance and the RegTech sector. Don't get me wrong, it's impossible for me to outline all the ways our software can assist you today, and especially within the 4.5 minutes that we have. So I've selected just a few ways that we can help you to reduce the risk to your organisation by improving compliance procedures. Next slide, please. QR codes is an item that I've created and just included because what we can actually do is you can actually use QR codes for reporting into your organisation, be that a user or an external party. And don't get me wrong, this is not just a Google form with a QR code attached. This is an integrated reporting and management tool. So whilst you may start with the initial report, everything that subsequently relates to that item, any actions and investigations, any applicable legislation, training and certification, and by that I mean evidencing that everybody involved was suitably trained and certified, or you've actually followed and complied with any legislation relating to your procedures, and any subsequent root cause analysis or the lessons learnt and non-conformance reporting and subsequent investigations from that. These can be all managed centrally and accessed easily without the need for numerous disparate systems. I think we've all spoken to a lot of organisations, large and small, that manage still everything on an Excel spreadsheet. And what we actually do is remove the need for that spreadsheet and actually integrate systems. So you can add a QR code to an asset so anyone can scan that QR code and see when it was last inspected or if it's compliant, but then also report a concern or a request or an incident relating to that particular item. Or even just with regards to training I mentioned earlier, you can actually access your training requirement through QR codes or distribute them to your contacts within My Compliance Vision. And those contacts don't need to be a user. They can be the rest of your workforce that aren't a user, contractors, suppliers, or even your clients. We're used for customer service reports, customer investigations and scenario building, as I said, health and safety teams, quality, and more importantly today as well throughout organisations, ESG reporting and management and compliance. There's no limit to the number of distribution lists we have within our software, and as the slide says, the possibilities are endless. Next slide, please. Our software, as I say, doesn't just span the HSEQ environment now, it spans all departments within organisations, because what you can actually do now is actually rewrite the software. You just rename the modules and actually put the workflow processes in that you want. We work with, as I say, a whole host of industries, and whistleblowing and anonymous whistleblowing is something that's really important to them. And we've got large corporations that are implementing our software so that they can actually manage this, but also safeguarding procedures. That's something that is dealt with usually separately by anything, and what our users want to do is actually lock down that so that those safeguarding procedures and investigations can be managed and reported, ensuring that everything's actually locked down and complied with. Next slide, please, Alison. It leads me on to the next slide, which basically shows that what you can actually have is an infinite number of users and actually access and processes within those actual modules available to you within My Compliance Vision. You can have multiple users in multiple modules and roles, and you can have multiple hats for those particular users. Safeguarding is an example, because what you could actually do is you could be a manager within a particular department, but if you wanted to do something within the safeguarding role, then you could actually just put that safeguarding hat on and actually create that particular process. Last slide, please, Alison. We are a totally different solution to some of the solutions you're looking at today. We are very much probably an internal compliance and risk management software, but we are renowned as an affordable solution wherever you are, and also for great customer service. We deal with very large international corporates which have tens and thousands of clients and customers and users, and they report in and use our software using My Compliance Management, but they get all of that for $6,250 or whatever actual currency that you're dealing in with the country that we're dealing with. But thank you very much for your time today, everyone. And if you wanted to talk or find any more information, you can find that at the details on our website attached. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. RegCentric, over to you, Thomas.
Thanks, Alison. And thank you for hosting us today to the RegTech Association. So in my 5 minutes, I'll have a chat about how we drive conduct, culture, and ethics outcomes in the financial services industry through uplifting transparency and accountability in the space of regulatory reporting. I think, as we all know, banks, insurers, superannuation funds here in Australia, or wealth management, more globally, we're all regulated by a number of regulators. We disclose a lot of information publicly, and as part of the way that the system is kept kind of transparent, and it drives kind of accountability through publishing data to regulators and publishing data into the public domain. So have the next slide, please. So Reg 360 was designed to kind of seamlessly gather data from clients and then publish the reports into the format either required by the prudential regulator or in terms of internal formats that are presented to the board, or in publications that go on to the public domain. So whether that's financial disclosures or Pillar 3 disclosures in the banking industry predominantly. So in terms of driving that transparency agenda, one of the kind of core design principles that we've used to design the solution is to ensure that really it acts as a glass box, as kind of the polar opposite of being a black box. So it ensures that all kind of linkages between regulation, interpretation, and the data that is fed into those reports, that it's all kind of very transparent. You have lineage, you have traceability between those regulations and the application of internal business rules against those regulations, and that everything is auditable. So that drives the transparency of regulatory disclosures. And then in terms of driving accountability is to, I think we're all aware within larger organizations, there's a lot of silo thinking, there's a lot of siloed processes. So the way that we have designed Reg 360 is to truly create a collaborative environment, which will allow effectively, second line or kind of service providers within organizations, call it risk professionals, finance professionals, or regulatory reporting professionals, to collaborate with the business users to ensure that the data that goes into the public domain is actually signed off by the businesses that have produced it, and to really kind of reduce the barriers that exist between those different lines of defense, and ensure there's a full kind of transparent and auditable workflow between the various lines of defense as it comes to regulatory reporting. The next slide. So I thought I'll just highlight some of the kind of features that we have in the platform as kind of tangible ways to how we deliver those outcomes for our clients. I think on the top side here, one of the things that we've introduced is kind of the look and feel of kind of Microsoft products, to have this collaboration through commenting and tagging of colleagues. So all users in our solution can effectively communicate through our solution, and that's integrated with MS Teams, so people can get notifications through their Teams channel. You know, they can make comments, they can collaborate, and that drives kind of that lowering of the barrier between people producing regulatory disclosures or public disclosures and the teams that actually own the data that have gone into it. In the bottom, we actually have some screenshots of the way we embed documentation within the application. So this is kind of driving how business users can document how they've interpreted particular regulations. You can have links to the regulation, and then you can actually have commentary around any kind of assumptions or proxy methodologies used within the regulation. And so if you kind of bring it all together, Reg 360 is almost like a combination of your traditional kind of reg reporting kind of automation solution, plus overlay with the GRC level functionalities around risk controls, documentation, sign-off, and workflows, and then a kind of like a Confluence, let's Jira, to build up the internal knowledge base and make sure all decisions and all documentation is kind of all embedded within the business process. Next slide, please. If you want to learn more about Reg 360 and our award-winning Reg 360 platform, please visit the website or contact us at info@regcentric.com. Thanks, Alison.
Thank you, Thomas. That was great. On to Revealer. Bruce, over to you.
Thanks, Alison. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. That's great.
Oh, excellent. Welcome, everybody. I'm Bruce Wren from Revealer. We want to talk to you about conduct risk and a totally fresh approach to how one manages conduct risk using digital twin and AI technology. Next slide, please. In theory, promoting better conduct should be straightforward. Banks and insurers and other financial institutions do this every day. But employees, we find, do they know their policies and procedures? Do they know the regulations that apply to them? Do they know when information has been updated? Do they know when it's been superseded? And they need to understand the policy implications, the impact of regulatory changes. That is the theory. Next slide. In practice, nothing could be further from the truth. Policies and procedures and standards and codes of practice and regulations, all these multiple documents live in different repositories. They live in Dropbox, in ServiceNow, they live in SharePoint, they live in the OneDrive, they live in all these different places. Worse still, there's not just one policy or procedure. Often these are duplicated. McKinsey reckon that the average mid-sized intranet has 70 copies of every document, and that doesn't include version management. So the problem with documents is that first of all, they're not online. They are stored in PDF format inside folders and drives. Every document is an island. Every one is a standalone. It has no relationship with any other document because there's no metadata in the documents. They require downloading to be in full, so it's 100 pages or nothing, even if you only want one paragraph or one section. And there's no contextuality because we don't work that way anymore. We don't just work with one document, we work with policies and SOPs and standards and codes of practice and standards that all are related, and you need bits of all of them. And today's software does not allow you to actually use these in context. Next slide, please. So what you have on the left is really how everyone works with documents today. You take a PDF or a Word document, it's n number of pages long, often 50, 100 pages long. It has to be downloaded in its entirety, and it's available in English only. With Revealer, what we do is we do two key processes. The first one is we digitalize it, and we'll turn a 100-page document into a 100-page website in about 60 seconds. And we take we structure the data so that the table of contents effectively becomes the navigation of the website. Next slide, please. But the other more important thing that we do is we call this digital twin. In other words, we don't try and work with the source content, go and look through the folders and the drives and download the wrong material and get the wrong version and all the rest of it. What we do is we map the content back to the source, whether it's in SharePoint or Dropbox or whichever repository it is, and we map the web page, the digitized web page, back to the drive and folder of the source content. So now you have one place to go for all your policies, all your procedures, all your guides, all your standards, all your codes of practice in a single virtual website that always points at the true north. And the customer or the staff member doesn't have to go and search and download. They just access this through their browser, because we can map this at massive scale, no matter how big the organization is. Next slide, please. A perfect example of that is we've done this for all Australian regulation. Regulation City is one of our new properties. This is a 60,000 page website of every reg from ASIC, APRA, AUSTRAC, RBA, OASC, and the ACCC. And they are in one click away from any page of any document. Now we're also extending Reg City as well. So now we're going to be adding new jurisdictions, new industries, because what applies in financial services is just the same problem in many other industries. And we're also allowing you to actually have it piped into your intranet, or subscribe to it if you only want a few regs, or if you're a GRC system, maybe you want to have this delivered via API straight into the back end of the GRC system. So this is moving unstructured data and make it structured at scale. Next slide, please. We're also embedding AI into the capability there. So particularly if you want to overlay your regulations against your policies and procedures. Now, we know there's a lot of hallucination in AI, but the digital twin solves that problem, because you actually have a secure ecosystem, and the twin means you're only pointing to the true north. You're not having to contend with duplicates and version control. And we can do, obviously, query your knowledge base or summarize it, and do this in a secure environment inside, say, SharePoint or ServiceNow, etc. Next slide, please. So how this applies, of course, to conduct risk is that for the first time, employees can actually, can I have to just go back to that slide for a sec, please? Oh yeah, am I being thrown off? Yeah, what we're really saying there is the concept there is that the digitalization means that any employee can get to any information instantly.
Thank you, Bruce. And this whole pack will be put in and sent out to registrants, so they'll be able to see your full deck as well. Thank you. Hamish, last but certainly not least, transparently.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Alison. Hi, everyone. So transparently, yeah, if we can just jump to the next slide, let's get straight into it. So accounting manipulation is the focus for Transparently. It's an enormous problem. I know everyone's aware of it. Everyone hears about Wirecard or China Evergrande or Adani Enterprises, but I think you might be surprised, or many people are, at just how big this problem is. So independent academic research finds that 40% of companies manipulate their accounts every year, and 1 in 10 do it to outright securities fraud, which is astonishing. 1 in 10 companies. We estimate that's more than $1 trillion a year in lost funds to owners, investors, et cetera, et cetera. That sounds, I realize, like a giant made-up number. In fact, we realized just recently the SEC has come out and said they believe it's a $4.7 trillion a year problem. So the numbers are quite astonishing. Next slide, please. So what we've done is we've created an AI-powered system for the early detection of accounting manipulation and fraud. So this is a system that is literally designed to find the next Enron, the next Wirecard, the next Adani Enterprises. Next slide, please. And the way it does that is it starts off with a whole series of models that are designed to replicate the behavior of all the sorts of investigators you would expect. So forensic accountants, activist short sellers, equity analysts, credit analysts, etc. So actually this 160 is a bit of an understatement. We have more than that now of models to power the system. Those are combined into an overarching machine learning AI system, which is constantly ingesting every new data point released by every public company globally, and always looking for the next new form of accounting manipulation and training on it. Then you get output, obviously, from that, most importantly, a risk score that is literally the probability a company is manipulating, how seriously they're manipulating, and are they likely to outright collapse as a result? And then really critically, you need to explain it. So we explain it in particular across 14 clusters of characteristics, which are essentially aggregations of all of these underlying models, which in then turn feed up to this overarching risk score. Next slide, please. So the output from the system is a set of ratings. So it's literally like a ratings agency. We rate companies A+ all the way down to F, but it's on accounting manipulation and the risk of corporate collapse. In turn, we also provide numerical risk scores, literally a 0 to 100% probability you're manipulating and likely to collapse. I mentioned before the clusters to actually explain this, but if you really want the detail, the killer app of the process is full forensic reporting. So for any of the roughly 80,000 companies that are in the system, and any financial year for those companies, you can press a button and it will write a typically 15-page up to 50-page forensic accounting report that spells out all the parts of the accounts that look suspicious, what the company's likely doing to generate that, and what you, the user, need to do next. And really critically, it generates those reports in 2 to 3 seconds. Next slide, please. So in terms of benefits, the system is providing a lead on the market, including even the activist short sellers, by on average 2 to 3 years. So it's very, very early warning. Given what I just described, at least 95% productivity gains for forensic analysis. And we cover, with a few exceptions, almost all publicly listed companies globally. We certainly cover every single market. And in terms of what the user gets access to, it's a cloud-based screening tool. They get access to the full forensic reports, and it's a very simple SaaS model with an annual subscription. You go online, you pick what markets you want access to, and subscribe to them. Next slide, please. So in terms of benefits, obviously loss avoidance and profit enhancement, of course. Competitive intelligence, we believe this is a world first. Increased productivity, and most importantly, reputation protection. Anyone who's caught on the wrong side of these companies, it's obviously deeply embarrassing and very painful reputationally. So super important there. Next slide. Use cases in terms of banks, obviously things like fraud detection, credit risk, equity analysts, etc. Next slide, which covers auditors for obviously things like client onboarding, audit assurance, due diligence, forensic analysis and investigations, and advisory research or advisory work. And next slide for asset managers. Obviously things like enhanced stock selection, portfolio risk management, and investment due diligence are the obvious ones. We've got other use cases as well, but those are 3 of our main channels that we're focused on. Next slide. And this is my my last sort of substantive slide. I just put a little bit of data together. We're going to go into this in more detail in the presentation that we're going to provide in the live event in Australia the week after next. But just to put it in context, I mentioned these ratings just for Australia, given I think probably more people on this call are sitting in Australia than they are elsewhere. We did this for Australia, but we can do this for any market. Right now, we see 34 companies in Australia with a market cap over $1 billion. So these are decent sized companies that are rated for accounting manipulation in our system of C- to F. And I'm just looking at a little piece of data next to me. Of those, 5 are rated F. Now, to put that in context, F is what Wirecard had. F is what China Evergrande had. F is what Adani Enterprises had. So this is 5 companies over $1 billion market cap that are at serious risk of a pretty nasty imminent event. But C- to F, that whole range is enough to be worthy of serious investigation by the banks that have lent to them, by the investors in them, by their customers, suppliers, etc., etc., etc. So as I say, we'll go into this in more detail when we turn up to the event in Australia. So next slide just has my details, but I know this is going to be distributed, so we've all got that. But the last slide is an important one just after this. We put together a discount code. So if you go to our website and you scan this QR code, you can literally sign up to our system online. You can even trial it for free and have a play with the user interface. But if you use this discount code, that will give you a 20% discount. So please feel free to go online, check out the system and have a play. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Hamish, and thank you to all our speakers today. We've got a few events coming up over the next couple of months that I encourage you to go onto our website and check them out. 30th of April is our Accelerate RegTech Global APAC series program in Sydney. So it's a face-to-face event. It's going to be a great event. It's being hosted at Deloitte. So please come and join us. And as Hamish just mentioned, he will be speaking at that event. On the 7th of May, in conjunction with AUSTRAC, we're hosting a RegTech symposium in Melbourne. And you can express your interest using the link that Nathan is going to put in the chat. Thank you, Nathan. Our next EDGE event is 30th of May, which is RegTech Edge No Borders Data, Cyber and Information Security. So look out for that one. And on 19 June, we are hosting our Accelerate RegTech Global UK and Europe series webinar. So that will be an online event, and then we'll be running a face-to-face event in London on the 25th of June. So that will be going live with registrations in early May, so keep an eye out for that. That's all from me. Thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate the time that you take to come onto these events. We hope you enjoyed it, and take care, and we will see you soon. Thank you.